Welcome to the Infomotion and Episoft webinar around Fast Track Your Digital Continuity 2020. My name's Sean Doherty. I'm the Australian, New Zealand and Channel Alliance Manager for Episoft. With me today is Chris Mahoney, Solutions Engineer for Australia and New Zealand. Unfortunately, Michelle Phillips couldn't join us today, but we'll persevere and carry on. Look, I'm sure you're all familiar with who Infomotion are. But just in case you don't know who they are, Infomotion is one of the largest specialist IM&G consulting companies in Australia. They're an innovative professional service organisation specialising in the design and implementation of information management. Look, they build solutions on top of Micro Focus, Content Manager, Control Point, SharePoint, O365, LiveTiles and Compass, and of course, Episoft. So Infomotion is a platinum partner of Episoft. And what we're going to show today is how a solution like Content Manager enhances and kind of collaborates with smart capture solutions like Transact. So as an introduction to Episoft, it is a bit of a strange name. Our CEO, Ike Kavis, started the company about 10 years ago, really to disrupt a lot of the capture market. So the unusual name comes from Ephesus, an ancient Turkish port, where if you think about it, boats were coming in, merchants would unload, they would deliver their goods right across the Middle East, the Mediterranean, along the Silk Road. And that's what Episoft is. We're a port for data to be transformed, action, delivered to the wider business. So we go beyond your typical capture company. And we hope to show today, a lot of that kind of innovative within it. So the session will last for about a half an hour with some time for questions and answers. You should see a Q&A box down there, so at any time feel free to ask any questions, and we will allocate some time towards the end just to kind of answer those and give you a little bit more further information about what are the next steps and how we can proceed to investigate how Transact and Content Manager is going to be able to assist in transforming your organization. So let's begin. So let's start with the why. Why are government departments and businesses undergoing a digital transformation? Look, it can't be just because of the NNA's Digital Continuity 2020 policy. With so much information being created digitally by people, machines, and sensors, it makes sense to manage it digitally. And the technology available to us today really supports that. But it does require a lot of change in processes and a lot of change in practices. The good news, though, is information value is finally being recognized with the digital information and it's being seen as the new currency within businesses. Not only is value in mining masses of data for market and business insight, digital information can deliver a range of benefits such as immediate access, ease of sharing, reuse, reducing cost, more efficient business processes, greater collective knowledge. However, to tap into these benefits, you need to manage the digital information a little differently to the paper-based information of the past. The National Archives Digital Continuity 2020 policy is designed to be a whole of government approach to digital information. The policy emphasizes three key principles that I believe will ultimately help deliver the above benefits. So where information is valued, information is managed digitally, and information is interoperable. I like to point out, though, these policies, they equal value to both private and public sectors. So today's webinar really aims to show how Episoft Transact can help you realize that these three key principles and help you transform your organization and the agency that you work with. So the question is, how do you achieve what this policy has set out to do? How do you make information an asset? How do you turn what is traditionally paper-based forms into actionable digital data that you can manage? And finally, how do you adhere to it all being interoperable, where systems and processes are less costly, and where information is easier to share? Effectively, how do you get ahead of the curve and get a handle on the Digital Continuity 2020? There are numerous documents entering in organizations, whether it's freedom of info requests, council changes, contracts, employee records, name it, and no doubt an agency somewhere out there has a form for it. Now, the process traditionally is emails come in, mail comes in, we might even have hand-delivered correspondences appear. Then those are looked at, decided upon, actioned upon, sent through the warrants of government to land in a records folder, which is then manually typed into a potential case management system like Content Manager. All of that is a bit confusing. It's really easily open up for mismanagement, lost files. We could always have another, Canberra cabinet file incident on our hands. And to be honest, all of this is rather dull and boring work for the person actually interacting with that data. Beyond that, there's no way to search for that information efficiently or effectively. So what is the solution? How are we going to meet the demands of the NAA and also have the benefits brought to the agencies? Think about the policy statements. How are you going to treat information as an asset? How are you going to ensure the first step of the process allows you to be entirely digital? How are you going to ensure that information, systems, and process are interoperable and meet the expected standards? Not only that, but it has to be more than just paper-based. We have to take your old digital files and transform them into that actionable metadata. So the solution is Transact. Transact is a market-leading intelligent capture solution that really transforms data-intensive business processes. It reduces that manual effort, it reduces errors, it reduces costs, and it really enhances the customer experience when all of this is in line with the Digital Continuity 2020 policy. Effisoft Transact, it can automate the identification, the extraction, the classification of data, which needs, which when we go into the fourth industrial revolution, that drives processes, it makes better business decisions, and really the outcome is better services for your clients. You've got to respect, capture is becoming so important these days. Gartner listed that by 2025, 85% of information entering an organization will be unstructured. Being able to harness that information, making it actionable, making it searchable is paramount. Further, a smart capture sees numerous documents passing through an organization. It has to be able to intelligently read that information, push it out into the use case that it has. And this is key. This is what the solution needs to do. It needs to be able to identify quickly and sufficiently numerous documents where before human intervention for identification was needed. Now we can rely on the capabilities of technology, leaving staff to really focus on delivering beneficial outcomes to the department, agencies, or company. Managing info as an asset, managing it digitally, having systems and processes that are interoperable, this is what we're all about today. With Transact, you have a solution that will transform the way your organization deals, not only with the forms and the paperwork, but how it operates. It's a solution that will allow you to get ahead of the curve and not only meet the guiding principles and the policies outlined by NAA, but it also is going to lead to success outside of those policies, whether it's savings, whether it's governance and compliance, whether it's productivity, whether it's efficiency, actionable insights, or enhanced customer experiences. Right across any process, not just about scanning projects or documents coming in, we can really, truly transform the way data is handled in your organization. So at this point, I want to hand it over to solutions engineer, Chris Mahoney, to walk you through the demonstration. We're going to show two processes today, just so you guys are aware. We're going to show one where we show you how easily it is to classify multiple documents. The other is where we're going to actually go through the classification. We're also going to look to extract key data and then deliver that out into our SharePoint. So at this point, I'm going to introduce Chris Mahoney, and he'll take you over for the live demonstration.
Thank you very much, Sean, and good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Look, I'm just going to jump across to one more slide, and it's actually a very beneficial slide as it showcases what the Transact product, how the Transact product functions. So to sort of touch on each one of these particular nodes, Transact is all about capture. So that is enabling different capture points throughout your organization to ingest documents into Effisoft Transact. So there's a number of ways that this can be done. Today I'll be showing folder capture, and you'll see how quick and easy folder capture occurs. You can also capture from a email address, a dedicated email address. There are web-based APIs that also allow you to capture documents. We have things like portals. You can even go as far as scanning from a desktop scanner or multifunction device. So it will address a lot of back scanning needs, for instance, when you have a number of operators scanning a range of paper-based documents and moving those across into something like SharePoint, trim, CM, RM, and applying different retention policies to those documents. So once the capture has taken place, we move across to classify. Now, classify is actually rather simple. Classify will determine what type of document is coming into the solution. So in this case today, I have a number of different documents that the ladies at InfoMotion were kind enough to provide. So I have things like access application forms, customer contracts, development application forms, government notices, nomination forms, and service agreements. But look, this could be essentially any piece of documentation that is entering your organization. It could be as far as a purchase order or an invoice. It could be, and one that I had the other day, which was rather interesting, was a permission to cremate. There's dog registration licenses, all the different things that a lot of councils and government agencies have to work with in a documentation nature can be applied in Episoft Transact, and that particular document type can be classified against its rightful document type. Once a document has been classified, and Sean did mention my first demonstration is just showing the classification only, which is taking those documents in their native format, determining what document types they belong to, and then neatly containerizing those in SharePoint. If we were to move on to my second demonstration, which is extraction, I'll then start to show some of the power of adding index fields to the documents and then capturing the relevant information, which can then be further used in different lines of business systems or workflows, or in document naming and different conventions. I'll also show the validate step and then the delivery. So I kind of touched on that a little bit. We're delivering to SharePoint, but that could be a range of systems. It essentially could be anything. It could be HP Trim, for instance, SharePoint. It could just go into a folder structure, which is probably not ideal, but anything can really be done with the delivery phase. So what I might do now is just jump out of the PowerPoint and move into the demonstration portion. Excellent. All right, so look what I'm going to do. I'm just going to switch over, and this is purely administrative. As I mentioned earlier, I had a range of different documents that I was working with. So you can see here. And again, some of the information has been redacted, so it makes it very difficult to extract information off those documents. But we have certain things, nomination forms like so, and different government notices. So there's a whole range of different document types in here. Now, it would be a bit of a time-consuming task if there was, say, 400 documents in here. And then you can see that the sizes vary. There's variable pages. If I was to take a copy of these documents, and I could essentially be doing this at a desktop scanner or a multifunction device. So I'll take a copy of those, move those across into my inbound folder like so. And what you'll see starting to take place is Transact is already picking up those documents. So you can see that the PDF documents started to turn into folders. And if I move across to my administrative window here, I can see the documents that are coming through the system. If I continue to refresh this particular page, you'll see the list start to build up as these documents are being processed.
One thing to point out here is, it doesn't matter whether it's a PDF, whether it's a TIFF, a JPEG, or a Word file. Transact, whether it's going into the email inbox, whether it's going into an intranet folder there for an inbound, whatever format those files and those documents take, Transact actually has the capabilities and the ability to recognize it as information that it needs to capture, transform, and then eventually extract and deliver towards your line of business systems.
Thank you, Sean. So look, as Sean was mentioning that, the documents were starting to be processed and classified. You can see down below here, there's a range of different modules that run. So certain things like it will import the documents into Transact. It will determine how many pages belong to each document. Now, if you had one document containing 6 individual documents, it would individually separate each one of those documents out into 6 individual documents. It does have that particular capability. It will also reassemble the documents into those particular amount of pages. In this case, we're not really doing the extraction, so it does bypass that, and it does bypass the validation. So this is what you would call a completely automated process. And you'll see that the documents are starting to disappear. One thing I didn't show was my SharePoint instance. So this is SharePoint 365. Now the documents will be moved into their different locations. And you can see on the left-hand side here, a document was created a few seconds ago. So this is actually a real-time demo. I had no documents in here before I started. And you can see that the documents are starting to be populated, and one actually dropped into the folder just then. You can also see that I've sort of named that loosely with customer contract. And so the document will name with any kind of metadata that you're extracting, but this will also sort of show you the document that it's classifying against.
So the beauty of that is you can have multiple documents that need to land in multiple different files, and rather than having to manually move them from point A to point B or trying to find the correct file and file name for it, you can actually teach Transact or put the rules within Transact so that when it does deliver that information, it's delivering it to the right SharePoint folder, or the right content manager, the right file folder that it needs to be in, so that you're rest assured that the information is going to exist and reside there within that file and that folder.
Excellent. So I think, yeah, we'd almost be done. So it did, as I think within that sort of couple of minute period, it did roll through all of those documents. It classified those into the different classification according to the document type. And you can see that information there like so. So I might just jump into each one. So we're still waiting on the services agreement to come through. Things like nomination forms, as you can see here. So it does a very nice job of classification. One of the very nice parts with Episoft Transact is the speed to add one, a new document type, but two, classify documents against that document type. It is essentially a drag and drop functionality. So there is no need for programming or looking for specific words. It is very, very simple in that regard. So this actually sort of leads me on to the next part of the demonstration, which is the classify and extract. So I've actually got a range of different fields within SharePoint, and again, this could be in any system. And I want to actually extract metadata off my documents and then start to populate something like SharePoint, like so. So very simply, and I might leave this window open so you can see that. I've got two documents here, which are the access application documents for New South Wales Police. you can see that one of them was filled out by myself and the other by my colleague, Sean, like so. So if I take these two documents, and again, it could come from any source. These could be coming from an email address, a web page, or scanned in. I take those two particular documents and drop those into my folder like so. You'll see that they start to get processed automatically. And again, this is all real time. I haven't done any preparation of putting documents in, just to sort of highlight that. If I move across to my batch instance management, you can see that there's the two documents waiting. And after a specific amount of time, it will start to go through its cycles, determining pages, classification, and extraction. And it will move across to where a particular operator will see the information that's being extracted. And if necessary, they will be able to make changes to that information prior to sending it off to its final destination.
So to ask you a question, Chris, in real time here, when we go back to that document classification aspect of the presentation, the webinar, when you spoke about a drag and drop feature, are you talking about teaching Transact to recognize that particular document? And then from there on in, even if the document doesn't look exactly the same, it still has the capabilities to read and understand that that's a similar document?
Absolutely. So it has a learning engine built in, and very, very, very simply. And I can just I can show this just rather quickly. And not to go too far into it. But if I was to move across to my batch class management, and this would be purely administrative, a power user or someone like that would be configuring this. But if I was to open up my batch class, and you can see a range of documents that I have in here like so. If, for instance, you had something like passports, you could very simply, and this is something that wasn't in the documents that I put up there, but you could say upload loan files. And then what I could actually do is take a sample of that particular document. So I actually think I have my passport on here. So give me one moment. Yep, passport page, there we are. So that's actually my passport, and I can drop that in like so. And now, essentially, any Australian passport that is sent to Transact will be classified against that particular passport document type. And it's essentially that simple.
Fantastic.
All right, excellent. So, look, I'll move across to the application forms that we dropped into Transact. I'll go ahead, I'll open up one of those, and you'll start to see some of the information that is being extracted. All right, excellent. So there's the left-hand side, you see the overall document size. You have the ability to split and merge different documents within the batch. You also can roll through different pages of that document. The OCR will read across multiple pages also. So you can see here that I'm capturing some information from, I believe, page 2 or 3. And then I'm actually capturing a little bit more information from the next page. So it rolls across both pages. So you can see here that it's rather simple. It grabs the information according to an identifier on the page. Now this could be semi-structured or completely unstructured. And we can look for particular types of patterns. It may be an ABN, for instance. It could be really anything. But we're able to capture that information and where it resides on the page. One of the nice features is we can sort of move through and you can sort of see the yellow highlighted area of that information. We have the ability to also make corrections to this specific information on the fly. And if you have something like the enhanced machine learning turned on, if for any reason you wanted to make a correction, for instance, the date of the incident was actually the event number, you can very easily just click that, or you could right click and select that specific area like so. And in doing that with enhanced machine learning turned on, the next time a document of this nature comes through, it remembers that exact location, hence improving the extraction result. So it does a very fine job of that. But look what I'm going to do. I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to validate this specific document like so. And you can see here that I've got a low confidence threshold on this particular field. So this would be at a complete operator level. So I'm just going to go ahead. I'm going to validate that and press OK. And the next one that should open up is actually my one here. So again, I can have a quick look at that. You can see that I've set it to forced review so that it's mandatory that I actually look at this. And that really, that's a very good practice to ensure that you have true data integrity, that all fields are being addressed. They might need to adhere to a specific date format or a specific character length, whatever it may be. We can apply mandatory checks to each one of these fields when the metadata is being extracted to ensure that data integrity in the final destination. So I'm just going to validate that specific one there. And I'm just going to validate here like so. Now my expectation is that it will then, and as you can see there, it's starting to move into SharePoint like so. So if I validate my next one, and again, this is all real time, and it's generally a couple of seconds, maybe up to 30, and I should see the next document populate into SharePoint with the metadata associated.
Fantastic. Thank you, Chris. Look, that gives you a pretty good, concise understanding of how Transact actually utilizes and grabs information, exports it into, and delivers that data into a number of different fields, a number of different areas. So it really comes down to what areas that you guys want, what you want to actually present,